Let's call into session today's Finance Committee. I'm excited, Mayor. I mean that in the best possible way. I'm excited.
What'd you go do?
We do need some theme music to start it off. No, I don't want to do Green Acres. Oh, welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. We're so glad you could attend. Come inside. Come inside.
Man, you didn't drink any
Gentlemen,
Mountain
please
Dew.
take a look at the minutes. Take a look at the minutes. Mr. Wilson, Earth Matthews.
Yes, sir. Listen, I'm fine, man. I got my sticky notes and everything.
All right.
And my red pen.
Take a look at the minutes from last week's meeting. If there's a motion to adopt, we'll entertain that.
Here you go. Here you go.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, you gotta get in that guy.
Matt, he needs a second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, minutes are adopted. We have a one-topic agenda today, and that is the mayor's presentation of the mayor's budget. We've got the godfather of all things budget visiting over with the distinguished Mike Wright in the corner. Mayor, it's all yours.
Thank you, sir. And it is an honor to have Mike Wright here, the highest paid intern in the city's history, I might add, and somebody that taught me a lot about governmental accounting and finance. And so, Mike, it's great to have you here. And somebody a couple of years ago, before Ms. Standridge stepped in and helped lead our department, who stepped up again for the city. And so, Mike, I'll never forget that. And you will be a friend, a dear friend for me in life, and frankly, when it comes to budget and finance, a mentor. I want to begin by thanking a lot of people who made today's presentation responsible. When you put the collective number of people who are involved in this process, thousands of personnel hours that go in to the presentation today, really beginning in mid-spring up to culminating to today. And then we get into the home stretch of the final 6 to 8 weeks where we finalize the budget process ultimately to the council, which is probably your most important responsibility as an elected representative of the city of Tuscaloosa. I want to thank Carly Standridge and Becky Sheaf. I want to thank London and Bridget and Blake for their work and due diligence on this budget. I want to thank our department heads who ultimately have to provide the recommendations as part of this process. Richard Rush and his department, Sarah Bridger Gilmore, and Stacy Cooper as well for getting the presentation to where it is today. One thing that I'm very proud of as well is that this budget is actually 2 weeks earlier than required by state law. And it's the earliest that a budget has ever been presented to a city council under the mayor-council form of government since 1985.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So we're really proud of that.
You inspire us to match you on the passing of it.
Well, you know what? By 5 o'clock today, we could have a wide open August and
Suspend the
September
rules.
if you
We're
would like. But we really are pleased by that, and very fortunate that this budget. The last 4 years, we've had budgets dealing with everything from COVID to police pay plan to Elevate, a lot of complicated issues. This budget is really past all of that. And so in many ways, it's one of the more simpler budgets in terms of the complicated issues that I've presented in many, many years. So let's jump into the budget itself. One of the things we require internally, and I won't read each one of these to you, but we require that our recommendations revolve around our 4 core beliefs at the city of Tuscaloosa. And so where the majority of our money is spent in the general fund budget is in public safety, $77.3 million. There's a heavy education component that we will get into a little bit. Certainly not that we're statutorily required to help our school systems, but we do it as part of, quite frankly, it's been an ethos of this city for a very long time. $57.8 million invest directly into our infrastructure, and $9.9 million in employee pay increases that we're very proud of. In fact, if anything, this budget, if there's one thing that you leave with in thinking about this budget, is that we're investing in our employees, because we understand competing for workforce is probably our greatest one of the greatest challenges facing the execution of services at the city of Tuscaloosa. One of the many things we're proud of is the increase in fund balance. You do see, first of all, just to point out that fund balance is a little over $7 million higher than prior year. One of the changes that you see was the change the council made in terms of where we hold our fund balance in regards to our meetings with the rating agencies back of April of 2022 is why you see that difference in the general fund. But that's just an accounting, measure. Overall, our fund balance is $7 million higher, and certainly we're proud of being able to accomplish that. Some highlights of this budget that you will see is that we're recommending a $2.50 increase per month for residential garbage. By the way, residential customers still enjoy a $306 annual discount on what it costs us to provide the service. So $96.79 of that discount comes from the general fund, and $209.78 comes from Elevate. In layman's terms, we do not charge what it costs us to deliver the services, and Elevate provides, as promised back in 2019, a large portion of that $306 a year benefit to our citizens. Water and sewer rate, we're recommending a 9% water and sewer rate increase. This will have the impact of an average of $5.91 per month on the bill. This is actually 5.6% lower than the adopted 5-year plan. If we were to implement the 5-year plan, the overall rate increase would be 14.6%. Knowing that we're in a state of high inflation, we just felt we could continue to do what we need to do and hopefully even or smooth this out over the 10 years. But at this point, with this unprecedented back-to-back years of inflation, we just felt moving to 14.6 would be a bridge too far. At the same time, we have to continue to have the funds to implement our 10-year capital plan. And so this budget does that. So let's turn our attention to the general fund. As we do every year, we like to compare ourselves against our peers, being the Big Ten cities. So I know you know this, but I think for the public, it's good to remind them is that when you look at city sales tax rates, which is really how we pay the bills at the city of Tuscaloosa, out of the top 10 cities, we're the lowest. And you can see in Mobile at 5%, that's like cheating. You wouldn't even have to come to finance committee meeting if that was the case. But you look all and probably we wouldn't be invited back next week by the public if we went to 5%, Mr. Busby. But you see that where we stand, that really shows you the great job of our accounting and finance team and our department heads. With what we have, we can continue to do the job for the citizens of Tuscaloosa. In terms of debt, we are in terms of overall debt, general fund debt, we are in the middle of the road about with our population size. You see as high as almost $1 billion in Huntsville and as low as $16 million in Dothan. Dothan's really a unique situation because not only do they have their own water and sewer utility, they have their own electric utility, which really helps them on that general fund side. They're part of that Southeast co-op. So a little bit different, but still you get a sense of where we fit in overall with the rest of the state. When you look at our general fund debt, 22% of it is dedicated into items that were parks and recreation, and 78% is public works and infrastructure. So that's when we utilize debt, that is how it's been broken out. So when you look at our percentage of debt as an overall, our debt service is an overall percentage of budget, we're in the lower tier of Big Ten cities, the highest being Huntsville at 18.8%, and the lowest being Dothan, and Tuscaloosa is at 6.24%. Again, something I think this city can be proud of, especially when you consider Tickerick and Elevate. Us taking on those two big projects with Tickerick being reimbursed for the city. Talking about salary increases, this chart, probably online, it will probably be a little easier to read. But the red line that you see is the national wage index. That's how wages have gone up since my first budget I presented back in 2006. The black line are the exempt salaries. The yellow line are the public safety salaries. The teal line are the non-exempt salaries. And so when you look at non-exempt, that is the only one that's dipped below for a period of 20 and 21 and 22 below the wage index. But for the most part, we have been pretty well ahead as a city. When you look at the national wage index, again, something to be proud of.
Why does the black line exempt salaries not go any further back than 20?
That's when we divided, I believe we divided off the pay categories by our, with the pay plan back in 2021. When we created, it used to be that the public safety was embedded into our exempt pay plan, and then we separated the public safety out. So public safety employees this year in my budget recommendation, if adopted by this council, would receive an 11.1% pay increase. I think all of us know without our firefighters and our police officers, that is the core mission of this city. Whether it's a 911 call because someone's having a stroke or a fire or a heart attack, or whether it's a domestic violence call or a shooting, thank God we live in Tuscaloosa, where we have, I believe, the most well-trained firefighters and police officers. And I'm proud that our budget allowed us to make this recommendation. For our non-public safety employees, we're recommending a 10.1% increase. And Mr. Crow, I appreciate the email that you sent this morning. How many times have all of us celebrated emails we've gotten from constituents or phone calls about the type of customer service we get from our people? Certainly no one will, none of our employees will ever become wealthy working for the city, and I believe the vast majority do this not because of a paycheck, not because of benefits, it's because of serving something greater than themselves. And again, I'm very proud that our budget allows us to do this. The other thing that I'm very proud of, and LaShonda Kemp and Carly Standridge in both HR and accounting and finance deserve, our greatest thanks, but we have no employee increases to health insurance. I cannot remember a time in my career where we've been able to do that, and that is the management of our health insurance fund, and that was the recommendation from Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I probably violated our some ordinance of the city, but I hugged LaShonda when she told me the news that we didn't have that. I know that'll be welcome news for all of our employees at the city of Tuscaloosa. So how does it break down in our budget? The COLA makes up, the cost of living adjustment makes up 8.6% on the public safety side. And then one step movement that we're recommending is the 2.5% increase. This bar graph gives you an idea of how we've moved over the years. Certainly since 2014, this is the most significant pay increase that we provided public safety employees. The same for our non-public safety employees. Again, 8.6% COLA with one step movement of 1.5%. Any questions on that before I jump into some the revenue budget history? I know we'll have more time in the hearings to discuss.
Well, you said the debt that the city's taking over Pickerick is in that debt number.
Yes. McWright's Ferry Road is, yes.
Okay.
Moving to revenue budget history, this year the revenue budget is $190,585,000. Again, you can see the trend over the last few years. So what makes up those revenue sources? Sales and use tax makes up 46%. Business licenses make up 13%. Business licenses are really a reflection in the rearview mirror. That is your prior year sales that took place in your local businesses. Property tax is 11%. Lodging tax is 5%. The transfer from water and sewer is 4%. Commercial and rental license taxes are 4%. The discount, the money that comes in from Elevate to provide the discount for garbage, trash, and recycling is 3%. And then the ESD fees what we do charge for service brings 2%. So if I was on the telestrator in the council chambers, I would circle that sales and use taxes, because that's what pays the bills, and that's why the discussion on SSUT is so important to the future of the city, and not just our city, but cities across Alabama.
Can you back up?
Yes, sir.
Not that one, but the one before. On the 2023 revenue, is that where we forecast will be on September 30th?
Yes, sir, that's a projection.
Huh?
We're-
That,
Was that, I mean,
so the,
was that the actual budget, or is that?
no, the original budget was 175,289, but we're
So-
thinking we're gonna come in a little above that at 176?
So the 2023 number on the screen is actually, it's the 2023 revised budget.
Okay, thank you.
So we've had a couple
I'm
of
sorry, I didn't
revisions
get that
here
right.
and there, some small revisions from the 175 that's listed as the original in your book. And this is the revised budget for 23.
Okay.
And you bring up a good point, Mr. Busby. Where you see those gold bars, the 23 is what we believe we'll end the year with, very conservatively. The 24 is what we're recommending for the budget. So looking at, if I were a member of the city council, this would be the most important revenue table that I would look at, because these are the revenues that you have sole discretion over. And those revenues increased, we're projecting by we're budgeting for 7.1 million in 2024 if you adopt the budget. City sales tax, we're recommending a $2 million increase. We'll go through this in a second, line item by line item. The ones that are highlighted again are the ones that are direct reflection of the local economy. And that's, again, property tax is something that, again, is going to move pretty much at a very regular and paced rate. Lodging tax, in many regards, is that way. And rental license tax, but the others that you see, those really give you a good sense of our budget. The one thing that we're not economists, that I can't tell you with any, and I'm not sure if anyone can, is does our growth in 23 versus 22, is that growth or is that inflation? Because we are so sales tax driven, and much of what we tax the price of that has increased. My sense is that there's not the growth that we've seen in the prior years. There is indeed a slowdown, and the revenue growth itself is more of a reflection of inflation.
Did I miss, the 23 revenue projection is lower than 22, right?
It's not lower.
Back,
So the inflation
back up.
kind of normalized out in 25. It's gonna go back down.
So,
So the 23 projected revenue
so I'm
is
gonna,
lower than the 22.
so this is going to be another accounting change. Between 2022 and 2023, there is a certain sales tax amount that is a pass-through. The city receives it from the county special tax board. It's about $20 million for the city school system specifically. In 2022, we listed that purely as a revenue. In 2023, we have netted it with the pass-through amount of a payout. So you'll see a little bit of a dip, but that takes into account the extra $20 million of a payout that we are taking into account in 23 a little bit differently than we did in 22.
Okay.
So actually there was growth. So revenue for the city to use between 22 and 23 grew, even though that number looks like it went down, because that's just an accounting methodology change.
All right.
So again, we have roughly about 7 million in terms of new discretionary dollars that the council can use. Now, certainly we are recommending use of that, but this is where the council can determine whether it wants to accept the recommendation, whether it wants to reject the recommendation or amend the recommendation. So looking at the major revenue items in terms of city sales tax growth, again, you can see that we've averaged 4% annual growth since 2018. In 23, we're projecting $46,640,960 to be what we end the year. We're recommending a budget of $47.1 million, about 1% growth recommendation. My sense is, and again, none of us know until the revenue numbers come in, that 1% will probably kick down a little bit, probably be a little under 1% by the time we close out the end of the budget year. So projecting minimum amount of growth in city sales tax. In county sales tax, we're projecting that we will close this year at $21.9 million. We're recommending a budget of $22.167 million. Again, my budget is projecting a meager 1% growth rate. I'm trying to be conservative. Certainly that's 5% less than the average annual growth rate that we have seen. Business licenses, 23 million. 90,000 is what we believe we will end the year in fiscal year 23. We're recommending, again, meager growth of $23.3 million for business licenses. Property tax, we're recommending flatline collections, so just prior year budget. Lodging tax, we're actually, right now, my budget recommendation is $916 below what we project we will end the year. I tend to think that's going to be higher knowing the everything that's coming this fall, but we're trying to be conservative in this budget itself. And I forgot, we talked about this early on as a team, but you also have how the home games fall in which fiscal year. And going into fiscal year 24, we have a lot of games in September this year, which are actually in this fiscal year versus in October, which is the next fiscal year. So where we're spending those dollars as a city, police is 22%. Fire and rescue is 18%, so 40% of our budget is directly into public safety. CFG is 7%, agencies are 7%, public works is 7%, ESD is 5%, IT is 4%, and then the remaining city departments collectively are a mighty 15% as a whole. Don't underestimate Scott Holmes and OCA and all the other departments that are embedded into that number. But that gives you a real sense of what it costs to operate a city and where those major costs lies. We also included, to give it the 100% other operating, which includes debt service, lodging tax transfers, jail cost, animal shelter, property insurance, RSA, escrow, etc. So what are our expenditure types? 64% of our expenditures go into salary and benefits. Then you can begin looking throughout the pie chart to see where the other major expenditures go. 8% to agencies, 3% to utility costs, 7% towards debt service. So it gives you a sense of where we are expending our money. I do want to touch on the public safety escrow account, and again, if I had my telestrator in front of me, I would circle the fiscal 25 projection. As of right now, we anticipate having a surplus of $6.2 million. Our internal goal is to convert into RSA beginning fiscal year 27. Our goal is to use this escrow account to help ease us into that RSA conversion. So we feel very good about our budgeting and this giving us another line of protection. Moving forward with RSA will be the largest, most significant investment in the city's history, and it will be perpetual. And it's well deserved by our firefighters and police officers. The public safety escrow account gives us the ability to make certain that when we make that commitment is good for a generation, and well, really generations to come for our police officers and firefighters. And we certainly look into diving more into this with you. But I give accounting and finance a lot of credit for creating this and utilizing it as a vehicle by which we can ensure a smooth transition into the retirement systems of Alabama for our firefighters and police officers. To give you a little historical context, my first budget was fiscal 2007 that I presented back in 2006. That budget, 60% were salary and benefits. This year is 64%. So why the increase? And it's really simple. One is Elevate Tuscaloosa has more our new responsibilities that we didn't have back in 2007. In addition, fire and police. The investments that we've made since 2021 have certainly increased our salary and benefits cost. But considering the environment that we're in, I'm really proud of our consistency of how we budgeted salaries and benefits. Again, the same for debt service. That 7% debt service, that includes McWright's Ferry Road, which is being refunded back to the city through Tickerick. So again, something you can see that very proud of how we've approached budgeting since Mike Wright led us and today to Ms. Standridge. Touching on Elevate Tuscaloosa, because it's a large part of those new responsibilities that we've taken on at the city of Tuscaloosa. You know this, these are the 5 core mission areas of Elevate Tuscaloosa. Since we've passed Elevate, we're dollar per dollar in revenue received and partnership and grant matches to it. And so that is something we can be proud of. From the Savings Center to the National Airport, we've been able to use Elevate dollar per dollar to make investments across Tuscaloosa. And without Elevate, we would not be accomplishing all these many things for our citizens. So Elevate's being put to work, and as we promised, the new Elevate projects would be funded by Elevate, that the general fund would not take on those responsibilities. So this budget includes personnel to maintain the Western Riverwalk, Carlton Park, Snow Hidden Park, JC Park, and we already have personnel on board for Northern Riverwalk and River District Park. You see the cost up there. I point you to the undesignated reserves. Even after funding our responsibilities in Elevate Tuscaloosa, we have a balance within that fund alone of $3.3 million. That fund was created back in 2019 to do what it was supposed to do, and that was provide the operation and maintenance of our Elevate projects. And so we're going to make certain that Western Riverwalk, Carlton Park, Snow Hidden Park, JC Park, Northern Riverwalk, and River District Park have a standard of excellence that you are proud as a city council member to talk about and show to our constituents and to those visitors that come to Tuscaloosa. And so this design is working. In terms of overall revenues, we anticipate $26.6 million in total revenues for Elevate Tuscaloosa, and that lesses out. You see the 2 ongoing abatements we have right now. Just some updates on projects. The pre-K program has 650 children, with a large part of that funding coming from Elevate. By the way, that saves the average family $4,600 a year. We have near universal pre-K in Tuscaloosa. 41%, thanks in large part to Elevate, of our elementary students took advantage of our summer learning program. 75 last year's data showed 75% of our K-3 students who participated showed no summer slide. That's going to pay dividends. And again, for those of us with young children, every child who participates in this, that saves the family up to $5,000. That's a big benefit to families in our community. And then dual enrollment, and this year we're going to move from 9 credit hours to 12 credit hours free. The data that the school system, I forwarded to you, since we created this program for Elevate, we've more than doubled the number of students who participate in dual enrollment. And whether it's Shelton State, University of Alabama, or Stillman College, our young people are getting a jump on being college and career ready. And one of the things, Mr. Lanier and Mr. Wilson, as alumni of Stillman, I'm very excited that Dr. Page is scheduled a time with me about increasing the number of our young people in our high schools getting into Stillman College's dual enrollment program. So she has truly hit the ground running. Another fact that gets lost about Elevate is that 1 out of every $5 of Elevate goes directly into public safety and is helping us accomplish things such as moving to RSA, take-home vehicles, the pay increase, etc. Without this infusion from Elevate, we wouldn't be able to support the men and women within fire and rescue in the Tuscaloosa Police Department. Just some quick updates on projects. The Sokol Park Phase 2 is moving forward. I know that it's going to create some inconveniences in September, but that project is moving forward and it should be completed. The last update from City Engineer's Office was early October. This is going to improve safety immensely out there. This is, I don't know the numbers, but it has to be one of the most heavily used parks, Sokol Park North and Sokol Park South. Western Riverwalk is on schedule and expected to open in March of 24. And so we are excited about this largest and most significant investment in our Riverwalk in the city's history. Snow Hidden Phase 1, I'm already jumping ahead, Mr. Fell. I've already got Phase 2 on my mind. Snow Hidden Park Phase 1, construction is expected to begin this fall. I think this project is certainly maybe one of the more visible projects we've ever done with Elevate. And I think we can all agree Snow Hidden Park was in need of a refresh. I'm really excited about what this is going to do in terms of amenities, safety, lighting, etc. in the heart of Tuscaloosa. Carlton Park, construction is expected to begin this fall. And I know someone to the right of me is very excited.
That will be amazing. That will be amazing. Y'all, that will be amazing.
And my goal next year is that Mr. Wilson and I are talking about Burrell Odom Park. Because
That's right.
I see that park in the same way that I see Carlton Park in terms of improvement.
It's coming.
And y'all know I'm very proud of Elevate. I'm very biased about Elevate, and so I recognize that. We couldn't do any of these things without Elevate Tuscaloosa. We would never have been in a position as a community to do these types of projects, whether it's supporting public safety or investing in great neighborhood parks like Carlton Park. Speaking of a great project, Benjamin Barnes, construction is expected to begin this fall. This council to make a $12 million investment to young people, it's remarkable, and I don't think you receive enough credit for making that happen for our community. I know this project is close to Mr. Tyner. We hope to begin in 2024. Mr. Tyner, I think we're getting through most of the grant approval parts now. This project again is going to expand something that has truly been successful beyond any of our imagination. We have begun to engage with Brian Davis at Para. It may have been last week, I believe. I was a little fuzzy last week, but I believe he briefed us that there may be an idea to go ahead and do some improvements to some clay courts in advance of this project, which we certainly have no objection to if they think that's the best way to phase it in. So more details on that to come. River District Park has completed and it had opened. I know Mr. Wilson was out there at 5:30 this morning,
Yes,
actually.
sir. Come on, join us. Next Tuesday.
And Mr. Fell, we don't have it up there, but Bowers Park is in process now, and we look forward to hopefully in next year's budget of having that in there, including pickleball courts where the old tennis courts stand today. The last section of my budget presentation is the Water and Sewer Fund, and this is my annual reminder to you that you're one of the few city councils, in fact, you're one of 3 city councils in Alabama that have to entertain both a water and sewer fund that operate a complete utility like this for water and sewer. And certainly this takes on probably some political disadvantages, but I would say for our city of Tuscaloosa, this is our best asset. I was kidding Kimberly earlier, Ms. Michael earlier, about, we were just going to sell the utility for $500 million and call it a day on the general fund. But the truth is that our utility is probably worth that much, if not more, to the private sector. I hope the city never gives up this utility. The water from Lake Tuscaloosa, Lake Nickel, Harris Lake will mean more to our children and our grandchildren and their grandchildren than any of us can imagine sitting at this table. This is such an asset for our community. And I want to commend this city council for making the investments necessary to run this utility. There were years where there were recommendations rejected that, quite frankly, caused us to get behind. And that's part of a political body operating a water and sewer utility. I am proud that you made a decision that you were going to put the utility first, because if we do that, that's actually putting our constituents first in the long run. And you're beginning to see the fruits of that type of leadership and investment. In terms of revenue budget history, you can begin to see the 10-year plan take hold. And with continued improvements in our billing operations, I think you'll continue to see that number increase over time. Again, what we're offering is extremely, extremely affordable and reasonable. A gallon of tap water from the city is 4/10 of a penny, and you compare that to coffee and wine and bottled water and a gallon of milk. So again, what we're offering is very affordable. And when you compare us against other utilities out there, you can argue that you've got to have power. You don't necessarily have to have cable and internet to live, but you got to have water, and we're able to provide that at, again, a very, very affordable price compared to other utilities. This is a revenue comparison of how we look in fiscal 23 versus what we project in fiscal year 24. So when it's all said and done, about 5.87 in new revenue is projected. This gives you a sense of our revenue growth, with a large part of that growth really beginning after the adoption of the 10-year water plan in 2021. You can see prior to then that we had become stagnant, and that you have made the investments that will help propel our utility. Again, same story on the sewer side. When you look overall at where we are in terms of the budget recommendation, it's different than the general fund. It's certainly going to be more heavy infrastructure related. Debt service makes up 21%, depreciation 13%, salaries and benefits 23%. Gives you a sense of our major costs, plus chemicals at 4%. Operating our plants are an expensive endeavor. In addition to that, utilities and telephone. Our plants use a lot of power in their operations.
What are the biggest of the transfers to other operating funds?
The general fund, it's
Is it salaries for people involved? Or?
No, it's the indirect cost to pay for other operating departments, accounting and finance, human resources, OCA.
It's the allocation.
Yes, sir. That's the biggest one.
Of departmental labor and expertise utilized by water and sewer.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Busby, you have segued it in perfectly into that.
Charge,
no, you did good. It's just as we practiced the other day, so we have it just right. I know a question that the council has confronted over the last couple of years is, why does the water and sewer fund reimburse the general fund? It is because the city, as I mentioned earlier, is one of 3 municipalities that's operating a utility. If we did not do that, that utility would have to have its own operations. It would have to have its own IT. It would have to have its own city attorney. It would have to have its own fleet maintenance. It would have to have, the list goes on and on, logistics, procurement, etc. We provide that and then charge back those costs to the utility. Indirect cost is a model used throughout the 35,000 local governments across this country. So how do we come about, defining what that cost is? The city uses a 12% flat rate each year to determine that cost. That it was based off looking at the past, and that number has been pretty consistent over the years and has been close to the actual cost. So the budget that we're recommending has a 12% flat rate of $7.5 million. If you wanted to charge the actual cost of providing those services, it's $7.8 million. So we're actually providing, the general fund is actually providing a $250,000 benefit back to the water and sewer fund. So to give you an idea of how that is all calculated and how we work to come up with those costs, you see in the Office of City Attorney, it's the number of documents created. That was 36% of the documents generated within OCA was water and sewer related. 13% of our employees in HR are dedicated to water and sewer. Accounting and finance, 37%. Facility maintenance, 46% of the square footage of the city's facilities are water and sewer. Devices managed by IT, 10%. Your agenda items, 42% of your agenda items, your discussion items, are water and sewer. Strategic comms, 5% of their budget, and with fleet maintenance, 23%. So this is something that our team, accounting and finance, water and sewer, works very hard to make certain that what we charge back to the general fund are the actual cost. Again, if you wanted to do the actual cost, we're looking at 7.8 in years. I'm not sure how many years we've been doing it. We've used 12% because that gets right near where those costs are for indirect. Mr. Wilson, you have a question?
I just wanted to ask.
Any questions on that? Okay. So going back to my first budget to the city council, salaries and benefits were 27% of the budget. Today they're 23%. Debt service was 30%, and today it was 21%. Utilities and telephone, you can see, were about the same, and auto fuel about the same. I was really proud we were able to get that debt service number down so much over that time. The one drawback to that is one of the reasons why we had to do that was right after the tornado, and really until this council took office, there was a lot of hesitancy among the council to increase water and sewer rates. So there was no means or methods to be able to go out and make the investments necessary. You certainly have shown leadership and accomplished that. That is the budget, overall budget presentation for constituents. You can go to Tuscaloosa.com/24budget to see the presentation that I presented. Otherwise, Mr. Busby, I am happy to answer any questions that you may have, or discuss any items that you have seen. We look forward to engaging with the council over the next few weeks and discussing this budget in a lot more detail. Thank you, Mr. Busby.
Thank you, Mayor, very much. Speaking for myself, I'm gonna digest first.
You don't want to pass it by 5 o'clock and move on?
Well, might. Vicki, would you get us copies, hard copies of the slide presentation? Mr. Wilson, Mr. Crow, any questions you want to ask in the set, or any of the other council members?
Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for your presentation. I look forward to dialoguing with you and the Finance Committee and the whole council as we prepare to set forth this budget for the new year.
And we have looked at the staff recommended schedule for work sessions going through the next 4 Tuesdays, I think, as well as that agenda. Tentatively, we've approved the near-term one and expect that we will work our way down the outline that was provided for those, unless we come to an early conclusion.
We're here to answer any questions.
That's right. Walt, I just want to say thanks to you and staff for responding and giving us the budget a couple weeks earlier, because I think it's just important that we have a little time to look through this and discuss issues, and I think it's very welcome that you did that, and I appreciate that.
Real quick, and don't mean to put Ms. Standards on the spot, but would you mind introducing your team and giving credit where credit's due?
Absolutely, and Ben, thanks so much for the opportunity. I think that my name was said a lot. I did hardly anything. The real work really is done by the staff that sits behind me. London Jenkins is the Director of Budgets and Strategic Planning, and so he really is the one that has spirited this entire production through to the point that it is currently. Blake Duvall is his Associate Director, and then Bridget Ryder is a Senior Accountant within the Budgets and Strategic Planning Division as well. Bridget is the main guru when it comes to all operating budgets and deals with the departments directly to get a lot of the detail ferreted out. Without these individuals, this budget book and this presentation would not have happened, especially not in this time frame. So really the thanks definitely goes to them. And we will be here and available to provide any detail and explanation needed whenever the council is ready to discuss.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Yep, some going once, going twice. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say